Hi, I am Giuliano Cornacchia and I am one of the Scikit-mobility developers. Today, in this tutorial, I'm going to present the data module. In the first part of the tutorial, we will see how to load a dataset, while in the second part of the tutorial, we will see how to upload your own dataset to our collection. We all know the convenience of having ready-to-use dataset at our fingertips. For example, when performing data analysis, testing hypotheses, prototyping models, and so on. Unfortunately, while there are widely known datasets for tasks such as digit recognition, for example the MNIST dataset, for classification with the IRIS dataset, and sentiment analysis, let's think about the tweets collection, this is not the case in the human mobility domain. And that's why we, Scikit-mobility's developers, decide to fill this gap by providing a module to access and download mobility datasets, spanning from GPS traces of taxi in San Francisco to origin-destination matrices of people moving in New York City and everything in between. Today, in this first part of the tutorial, I'm going to present you the data module, the new feature of Scikit-mobility available with the latest version, the 1.3.0. The data module is very powerful, since it allows you to download the ready-to-use mobility dataset with only one line of code. The interface is very easy and it is composed by only two functions, the list datasets and the load dataset. The list dataset shows the datasets that are already available into the repository, while the load dataset retrieves the requested dataset and directly outputs it into a Scikit-mobility friendly data structures. In the data module, we used the trajectory data frame and the flow data frame that are Scikit-mobility data structures to model trajectory and flows respectively. Then we use the pandas data frame to describe auxiliary data and the geopandas geodata frame to describe shapes. So now we will do some basic imports and check that the version is the latest one. The first function we are going to present is the list datasets. The list dataset shows the names and information about the dataset already available in the Scikit-mobility repository. With the list dataset, we obtain a list of all the available datasets, that are 5 in this case, and we can also show some details about them, for example, the name, the description, the URL. In this tutorial, we will focus on the Foursquare New York City dataset and the New York City boundaries in order to plot them in the final part of this notebook. We can also apply some filter. For example, in this case, we are showing only the flow dataset. In this case, the flow for Foursquare New York City. But we can also combine some filters. So in this case, we are only interested in trajectory and shape datasets, as we can see from the data type column. While the load dataset function retrieves the requested dataset and directly outputs it into a Scikit-mobility friendly data structure. In this case, as we can see, with only one line of code, we are able to download the Foursquare New York City dataset. That is a dataset that contains the check-ins of users in New York City from Foursquare. With the drop columns equal to parameter, we are able to say that we only want the mandatory information for a trajectory data frame, that are the user identifier, the latitude, the longitude, and the timestamp. Now the script will download the dataset, and as we can see, the type of the dataset is a trajectory data frame, and those are the information associated with it. As we can see, this is a snapshot of the downloaded dataset. In the same manner, we can download the shapefile of New York City, that is the New York City boundaries dataset. This is a geodata frame to describe the shape, those are the information, and this is the downloaded dataset. Now let's use them. So in this cell, we want to plot the trajectories of the New York City Foursquare dataset with the boundaries of New York City. And so this is the final result. The plot has been made using Scikit-mobility. Furthermore, data module lets you contribute to the human mobility community by uploading your own mobility datasets and making them available for other Scikit-mobility users. Who knows? You may contribute and maybe upload the new Iris dataset for mobility. Reach us out to the Scikit-mobility on Twitter, and we will deal with the uploading of a dataset in the second part of this tutorial. Let's look directly from the repository how the dataset module works and which are the files required to upload a dataset. From the Scikit-mobility folder, we move in the scap-mob folder and then into the data folder. And finally in the datasets folder, where we have one folder for each uploaded dataset, in this case 5. So now we will focus on the Foursquare New York City dataset. As we can see from the screen, we have two files, a JSON file and a Python file. So basically the way to expose your uploaded dataset is very simple, and it's done via a JSON manifest file and a preprocessing Python function. The JSON manifest file contains relevant information about the dataset, for example, its name, a brief description of the dataset, the URL at which the dataset is available and can be downloaded, an hash function to assess the validity of the dataset, if it requires authentication or not, the data type, in this case a trajectory, the download format, in this case we are dealing with a zip file, the separator, and finally the encoding of the dataset. The Python file contains the processing script, and it contains a class that has the name of the dataset with a single method, the prepare method. We have to assume that the files downloaded are available at the fnames variable that contains the path of the dataset and the load from that path. Then we have to preprocess the dataset if necessary, for example, adjusting the time zone or doing some other operation. We have to convert the dataset into a Scikit-mobility format. For example, if you are dealing with a shapefile, it is converted in a geodata frame. And finally, return the dataset into the Scikit-mobility format. So in this case, we read from the fnames path, and we are only taking the New York City trajectories. Then we load the dataset in the raw data variable, and we use some information contained in the self variable, for example, the separator or the encoding. Then we don't do any preprocessing step because it's not required, and we skip the second step, and we load the dataset into a trajectory data frame. And finally, we return the dataset to the user. So it is very important that the name of the class, together with the names of the folder and the names of the JSON and Python file, must be the same in order to link everything together. After doing that, you only need to do a pull request, and then if you have any doubt, you can contact me at my email. Thanks for the attention.